Have you ever noticed how, when you're arguing about news or politics online, you'll always inevitably encounter at least one absolute arse badger who refuses to argue the point, who simply ignores every point you've made and just labels you as a snowflake, a do-gooder, or a virtue signaller? And have you ever noticed how, rather than actually debate you properly with, evidence and facts and stuff, these perpetually enraged and almost always crimson-faced semi-literates simply dismiss your arguments as the politics of envy, as woke, or as sixth-form politics? There are countless similar words and phrases that people like this use to attack their opponents online, but have you ever really thought about why they use them? Why do the same words and phrases always crop up day in and day out? Where do they learn them? And why don't they seem to have any actual arguments of their own? In this series, I'll attempt to define exactly what the most commonly used right-wing words and phrases actually mean, and then I'll translate them to explain exactly why each rote-learned and brainlessly repeated word or phrase actually tells us far more about the person using them than about the person they're trying to attack. This is the Right-Wing Dictionary. It may seem ridiculous at first, but there really are people out there who genuinely think that trying to improve society is a bad thing. In fact, there's loads of them, and many of these people are probably not even aware that that's what they actually believe. You see, whilst left-wing politics is inherently about improving society and moving things forward towards a better, happier, more equal world, right-wing politics, or conservatism, is, as the name suggests, about conserving, or, if possible, building upon, the existing system, the current social order, and the inherent inequalities and inbuilt injustices which underpin it. Therefore, for right-wingers to argue their case, which is essentially a case for not improving things for the less fortunate, it's necessary for them to try and stop people from thinking that wanting to make the world a better place is actually a good thing. Seeing as this position is clearly entirely ridiculous, there are obviously no moral or evidential arguments in favour of it. Therefore, the only thing that right-wingers can do to back up their own backwards beliefs is to resort to brainless and entirely illogical name-calling. So, in this first episode of the Right-Wing Dictionary, I'll be focusing on 3 of the most commonly used words that right-wingers use to try and do this. Do-gooder. Definition: a person who does good things that are actually bad for some reason. Example: look at that stupid do-gooder helping out at the homeless shelter. Most homeless people either choose to be homeless or are just lazy. They don't deserve anybody's help. Translation: look at that person from the homeless shelter being really nice and helping less fortunate people. I'm completely selfish myself, and I can't understand why anybody would ever do nice things for other people out of the goodness of their own heart. I'm just going to mindlessly insult them and hope my anger goes away for a bit. I'd much rather be inexplicably angry than spend any time working to improve my obviously deep-seated personal issues. Explanation: now, the phrase do-gooder is almost certainly one of the easiest right-wing attack lines to dissemble. It's literally just a catch-all phrase designed to shut down anyone who actually cares about other people and about trying to make the world a slightly better place. It's essentially just a brainless attempt to attack people for feeling the completely normal human emotion of empathy. So, if you still use the term do-gooder to describe someone, you're simply exposing the fact that you're completely self-centered. It really is that simple. Virtue signaller. Definition: a kind and thoughtful person who probably only does kind and thoughtful things for selfish reasons because I think everybody is a completely self-serving and morally vacuous arsehole, like myself. Example: look at that stupid virtue signaller telling me to stop hurling racist insults at Muslims. That idiot doesn't really care about other people, especially not brown people. They're only telling me to stop because they're selfish and they don't want other people to think that they're a racist moron like me. Translation: I like hurling racist insults at Muslims because I'm insecure and it makes me feel superior to them. I know I'm a racist moron, but I'm so angry and unthinking that I'll blame whoever the media tells me to blame. I learnt this virtue signaller phrase in the Daily Mail, and it gives me an easy way to shut down people who disagree with my horrendous opinions. I think everyone is completely selfish like myself, so people who do good things must only be doing it for their own ends anyway. Explanation. The term virtue signaler is quite similar to the term do-gooder, in that it's designed to mindlessly attack people simply for doing things that most ordinary people would deem to be good. However, the two terms do differ in the reasoning behind their use. Whilst the term do-gooder doesn't need any inherent justification for its usage, the term virtue signaler is used to directly imply that someone doing ostensibly good things is actually disingenuous in their motives, and are only really doing them to gain approval from other people. Therefore, labelling someone a virtue signaler is an extremely important tactic for right-wingers. Not only does it give them justification for their own selfishness and lack of empathy, it also acts to inhibit other people from expressing anger at injustice for fear of being labelled one themselves, thus further normalising and perpetuating the ideology of individualism and selfishness which underpins our current capitalist system. However, the fact is that anybody who uses the term virtue signaler only ever does so for one reason: to try and avoid actually debating the point. It's essentially just a distraction technique to try and antagonise the person they're arguing with in order to avoid having to justify their own opinions with logic or evidence. Snowflake. The term snowflake has at least 3 separate meanings. Definition 1. A person who expresses any form of disagreement towards any opinion I hold. Example: look at that stupid snowflake getting offended because I said the earth is flat. I don't care if they calmly laid out their argument using cast iron facts whilst I responded with abusive language and death threats. They're definitely the one who's actually offended, not me. Translation: look at that person challenging my opinion with indisputable facts. I can't back up my argument with logic or evidence, so I'm just going to insult them in the hope they stop exposing my ignorance and stupidity. I know it's deeply ironic that I'm calling them a snowflake whilst getting ridiculously angry myself, but I haven't got the intelligence to think of any response that I didn't rote learn from the media. Definition 2. A person who expresses any opinion towards any issue that doesn't affect me personally, and which I clearly haven't taken the time to understand. Example: look at those snowflakes supporting Black Lives Matter. They're white like me, so why do they care so much? I've got loads of black friends and I don't treat them any differently, so racism definitely isn't a problem anymore. They're just getting triggered over nothing. All lives matter. Translation: look at those people who are able to understand and show empathy with their fellow human beings who, all the evidence shows, are still being discriminated against simply because of the colour of their skin. I haven't really got any black friends and I don't really know anything about the subject, but the system has treated me badly too, and I want people to pay attention to my problems instead. Definition 3. A person who chooses to openly express natural human emotions in a healthy way, rather than bottling them up and becoming perpetually angry like myself. Example: look at that stupid snowflake crying because their mum died. I didn't shed a tear when my mum died. I chose to man up and get on with things. I think showing emotions is girly, and bottling things up never did me any harm. My regular violent outbursts and perpetual anger are completely unrelated. Translation: look at that person dealing with grief in a healthy way. I wish I was confident enough to do that, but I'm not, so I'm just going to insult them even though I secretly admire them. I was brought up to think that men should be men, and even though I can see how unhealthy this mindset is, I'm not going to do anything to change. Explanation: the term snowflake is one of the most popular right-wing attack lines. However, it is also one of the most ironic. The term was initially coined by the right to describe people who they deem to be easily upset or offended by something political, especially millennials who argue that the current system wasn't working for them. However, the term has since been co-opted by the left to ironically describe right-wingers who are forever expressing hilariously contrived outrage at far more trivial things, such as vegan sausage rolls and unisex toilets, to name a few. In political debate, there's probably no more important subject than the economic system we all live under, and being able to freely object to it and suggest improvements is a cornerstone of both free speech and democracy. Therefore, for right-wingers to suggest that people who object to the clearly broken economic system they suffer under every day at the Snowflakes, while simultaneously frothing themselves into a frenzy over barely consequential subjects which have virtually no effect on their lives whatsoever, really does take irony to a whole new level.